let's check in with Mamavi in the Joy News studio. Mamavi, quite a morning we've had. The conversation, the discourse, the analysis from our two guests have been fascinating, and we've seen a picture of certain possibilities of outcomes of this election. And as we continue to discuss these, no doubt, I'm sure there is more going on where you are. Of outcomes of this election. And as we continue to discuss these, no doubt, I'm sure there is more going on where you are.
Right, Kojo, Israel lies at the Electoral Commission. You know, in the midnight briefing by the Electoral Commission chair, she did indicate that in the early hours of today, Wednesday, December 9, they will receive 2 additional results and will thereafter be able to make the declaration today. So we're certainly checking in with Israel Lai on happenings at the Electoral Commission head office. But as it is now, here are the certified results, the regions where the Electoral Commission has confirmed that they've received certified results: Volta, Northeast, Central, Ahafo, Upper West, Oti, and Bono. And the outstanding 7, Ashanti, Eastern, Western North, Upper East, Greater Accra, and Savannah. We'll remind you of the numbers again. But what we have compiled is what we've been showing you if you're watching television, the 258 constituencies out of the 275. And that's the result, as you see it there clearly. Out of that, the NPP's Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo is in the lead. He's crossed the 51% +1 mark. And John Dramani Mahama is hovering around 47%. We're grateful to our partners, Petrosol, Cowbell, Coffee, McDonald's Shipping and Logistics Limited, Padiva Limited, DDP Outdoor Limited, Festiva, Wootria Lotteries, and HEPA Plus Mixture. This is where I leave and make way for Benis Abubedu Lancer, but Kojo Yankson and his guests are with us. You're on your election headquarters. My name is Mama View Sobwa. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your morning. Back to you, Kojo Yankson.
Thank you so much, Mamavi, for giving us updates all morning. Look, your election headquarters continues. We've got the absolute latest right here. Big stories normally at this time of the morning would have been brought to you by Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready, and Latex Foam, your partner for life. Let me tell you a bit more about these 3 partners of ours. Look, we're gradually drawing close to the end of the year. And Guarantee Trust Bank Ghana Limited has amazing offers for all of you cherished customers. To be updated with these offers, go to any of their 32 branches across the nation to update your information on their database, especially your email address and then contact details. You can also update this data on your internet banking platform from the comfort of your home or office. So don't miss out on any of their exciting offers and services. Update your information today to enjoy the very best of banking services. You want to know more? Just call them on the 24/7 Help Center. The number is 0302-611-560. There's a toll-free number as well, 0800-124-000. Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? Now, isn't it amazing when your network cares about you so much that they do amazing things for you? Well, you guessed it, I'm talking about the Vodafone Cash, dropping all charges when you send money to all networks, okay? Wherever you're sending it to, it's free, absolutely free. So go ahead, make payments, show your love, make contributions, send money, all you want via Vodafone Cash to all networks for free. Dial *110# to send cash for free. Ready? Now, are you looking for a sofa? Maybe a 1-seater, a 2-seater, 3-seater, L-shaped sofa. I'm sure you want diverse colors for your home, maybe, your office, your hotel. If you're looking for comfort, durability, quality, and perfect finishing, there's one place for it. It's called Latex Foam, your one-stop shop, whatever your choice or budget. Latex Foam is your partner for life. So it's your election headquarters, our guests walking us through all the fascinating analysis. Seydou Alidou, Dr. Seydou Alidou is a political scientist from the University of Ghana. Clara Berry Kasser-Tee is a legal practitioner and a law lecturer from the University of Ghana. And the whole nation has been hanging on to their every word this morning as we've been breaking things down. And we're doing this because, of course, we are still awaiting even more results. But what we do know, as Mamabi wrapped up beautifully for us, what we do know is that President Akufo-Addo is in the lead with over 51% of the votes that we have verified so far. And we verified votes from 256 of the 275 constituencies. There are more coming in. My colleague Winston Amwa will be joining us with more details shortly. Stay right here for it as it unfolds. But we were talking peace before we took a break. And Clara, I was eager to hear your take on how well or otherwise we have actively worked to have a peaceful outcome of these elections. And we are certainly not out of the woods yet, are we?
Yeah, we are not out of the woods, but as I expected we would do this peacefully, the isolated incidents notwithstanding, because I've always said that one thing we can't take away from the Ghanaian people is the commitment to peace. We can't take that away from the Ghanaian people. We always disagree passionately. We may have heated arguments, but at the end of the day, most Ghanaians, the majority of Ghanaians, prefer their peace. So they will take part in the process to try and make sure that, remember that our motto is freedom and justice.
Yes.
So we like our freedom, we like our peace, but we also have a keen interest in justice. So yes, they would follow the process to make sure that everything works, but eventually the majority of the Ghanaian people always choose peace. And like Dr. Alidu noted, we do have the structures, the internal structures, informal, some of them are, to work and then try to talk to one another, including leadership, to get us to commit to peace and all of that. But our democracy is maturing. And as I say, the more we educate a lot more people have information, people know what is happening, we can trust the system, we see the structures, we see the transparency, everybody follows, and then we know that the justice bit, which is that, okay, this is how it has gone. Yes, I think to a very large extent, we can rest assured that not everybody is going to be happy, and we can't expect everybody to be happy, but as long as we know that everything has been fairly done, everyone was treated fairly, the justice has been catered for, yes, we will go home. Some will celebrate, some will not celebrate, some may not be happy, but eventually we will move on. Yeah. So yes, although we are not out of the woods yet, I still expect that our peace, as we started before, during, will continue after the elections. That I'm very confident about in us about.
Now let's assess those who have an even more of a formal obligation to ensure that we have peace. Not just the security services, which we should talk about in a moment, but political leadership. We signed a peace pact just before the election began. The former president and the current president signed a peace pact, which created a formal obligation on them as leaders of parties to ensure that certain things that would jeopardize our peace will not happen, including the inciting of their followers, including a failure to provide justice, which is a prerequisite for peace. All of these things, these obligations are on them. How do you assess their work to ensure that they meet those obligations, some of which are very difficult to carry out, especially when you have to be responsible for other people's behavior?
Okay, thank you, Kojo. I think this kind of formal pact that political parties sign actually imposes a kind of moral obligation on them to make sure that the whole process is conducted in a way that is peaceful. And I think we started it way back. I can remember in 2012, the process was led by IDEG and other civil society organizations, which happened at the Otum Force Palace in Kumasi. Yeah. And I remember in 2016, it was done at the State House in Accra here. And then in 2020, it has happened again. So I still believe that those commitments have actually made them to be able to live by the obligations. But one thing we have to make clear is that if this document that they have signed can only work if the processes are seen to be fair, free, and transparent. once we begin to I think it's always conditional. It's built on the condition that everything is done right. Then I will now contribute my part towards the peace. So if there are reasons to believe that the processes is not fair, things are not being done right, or there is a general collusion to subvert the will of the people, or to do something that in itself is undemocratic, then the obligation to now commit to peace begin to wane. Though in most cases, there are still other voices of dissent and reason will still speak to them, and then it is resolved in a manner that is good. But one thing we have to make clear is that democracy is government of laws and regulations. So even where you believe that the processes that has become the condition for you to accept the peace has been breached, there's still a constitutional means to seek redress than to resort to other means that will not augur well for our democratic system. So I believe it is a kind of huge burden to carry. You've signed this on national television before everybody and commit to peace. So even if the processes are not even the way you had expected it to be, there's still an avenue to resort to democratic institutions to right those wrongs, so that you can still execute the obligation that is reposed upon you. And I believe so far so good, and I still believe that no matter what, these two gentlemen in particular will deliver us peace. They have done it in the past, and we still believe they will do it.
Let's talk about the law enforcement, security services. Now, once again, I think it is fair and accurate for me to make that blanket statement that by and large, the election process was peaceful. By and large, there were isolated incidents which will come up for discussion on and on and on until the cows come home. But largely, we can say that on the balance of things, we've had a peaceful election.
Certainly.
Law enforcement has contributed to this. Police, military, immigration services, they've all come together to work throughout this time. But I want us to go a bit further back, because as a nation, I think we are often blessed with warnings. We are often blessed with events that give us rehearsals, to help us do the big thing better. So we had Ayawaso West Wuogon, which resulted in an entire commission being set up. Then there was the white paper from the commission, and now leave others to decide how much of that we have implemented and how much we haven't. Then we had the registration exercise, where all kinds of things happened, which were all supposed to be, if we were paying attention, lessons, things from which we can pick, learning, so that when the big day comes, election 2020, we can avoid such things. Now, we still had pockets of events. We had this shooting which involved the military in Techiman, and perhaps one or two other isolated incidents.
I think Ewutu Senior, there was also another shooting.
That's right, shooting in Ewutu Senior. Two journalists were victims of that shooting.
And then to some extent, there was also another incident, and then subsequent arrest.
Indeed. So yes, some of the flashpoints turned into hotspots, or the other way around, hotspots or whatever. But things happened. Did we learn enough from the rehearsals and the warnings that we were given over the past few years? Could we have avoided even these isolated incidents?
Oh, I think we did learn something, and I think that has contributed to some of these isolated incidents. It's not being the common story. Yes, we could have done better. For example, I understand that one of the issues that helped the tension in Odo-Diodio was, I think there was a combination of polling stations and people were agitated and all of that. Of course, we could have managed, we knew from the registration and the processes that, this was one of the hot spots. So you want to take your time and make sure that everything goes on well. There's always one thing I always say you can say for the Ghanaian people. When things are put in order and they can understand what is going on, they cooperate. They can understand what is going on, they cooperate. Of course, you will always have the isolated incidences, or you most of the time have the isolated incidents and all of that. But largely, did we learn? Yes. I think we learned. We, at least, if we take Ayawaso, for example, we didn't have similar experiences as compared to the by-elections and all of that. Can we improve? Yes. And I always come back to state institutions. I always say that, look here, political parties, politicians come and go. So politicians will win elections and lose elections. They come in every so often. One person is there all the time. The constant is the state institutions. The state institutions are always there. Governments may change, but they don't change. They are always there. So the state institutions must be the ones, in fact, not that they must be, they have an obligation to always watch out for the people. They have an obligation to always put the welfare of the interest of the people above everything else. And once they keep improving on that, we are going to get better. Because even for the isolated incidences or the complaints, that it's because people usually feel the system is not treating them well. But once the state institutions are able to do their work, putting the welfare of the people first, treating people dispassionately so that people have confidence in the state institutions, some of these things are going to die down. And very soon, anytime we are going into elections, we wouldn't need to be a bit agitated about whether or not we are going to sing peace. We know it will happen because this is the process. This is what the people are used to. And like we said, we will still expect the process to go on like they are expecting, but we know where to go and find the information. And if we go to the EC website, for example, we see what the information is there. When it comes to that, it's much, much more difficult for people to incite others. It is when information is not available, like Dr. Lidu said earlier on, that whatever is provided to you, even if you are not too sure, but that's all you have. If that is all you have, you may still leave it, even if you cautiously. So once we trust that this is the information coming out, it's gone on through all the correct channels, and we can trust it, the ability to incite others reduces drastically. And then eventually, of course, we all know that, yes, we may have our differences in opinion, we may have our preferred political parties, but we know that these are the rules of the game. The relevant state institutions will enforce the rules of the game not just without fear, but also without favor. And then at the end of the day, we all look out to the outcome and work at it. So I think we have learned some lessons, but there is more room for improvement. There is room for improvement.
One guy knocked over a ballot box and immediately got arrested. Beyond that, I can't really think of any example of what we would have traditionally called vigilantism. Have we finally put that menace behind us?
I think in these elections, particularly in the voting process, we haven't seen the activities of these groups so much compared to the Ayawaso Wagon by-election, but also in the registration process. So I tend to believe that the education done by the NCC, the National Peace Council-led effort to disbanding these groups, and the passage of the Vigilantism and Other Related Offences Act is actually working. But I don't think they have been completely disbanded. I believe they are somewhere, but maybe because of the relative years, they still haven't been given so much role to play in this election. Because usually it's the die-hard supporters of the political parties that come out to behave this way, even though in most cases they are rewarded for behaving that way. I still believe there will be die-hard supporters in every political party, and every die-hard supporter is a potential vigilante person in terms of the way they behave and act, especially if the process are not done in a way that respect democratic institutions. But to be honest with you, from 7th up till now, we have seen that they are less deployed compared to the past, and I also believe the security agencies have drummed home the point that when we see people who are not supposed to be at the polling station being there to cause trouble, we'll deal with them. So that kind of message has also been widely accepted, and I believe wherever you look at in the electoral process, it's either state security institutions, military, police, or immigration, or those things, rather than this so-called. So I think for now they have gone hibernating. I'm not sure when they'll be resuscitated, but I still believe when more effort of engagement and consultation continues after these electoral processes, I believe we should be able to reduce the level at which they operate, if not completely do away with them.
Yeah. So in one of the 2 shooting incidents that we have on record, the Techiman incident, it's the military that is said to have conducted the shooting. Our understanding from the EC's description of their preparations was that the military will always be the backup.
Yeah.
They won't be the force on the ground at the collation center or at the polling station. It'll be the police. Yeah. And then when things get out of hand, the military will come in. How do you assess this? Do you feel that perhaps in the Techiman case, the police just wasn't up to the task and there was a need for the military to be there? Or do you think the police has, by and large, carried out their constitutionally mandated duty in this election?
Oh, yes, I think the police has by and large carried out their constitutionally mandated duties, in spite of the lack of resources that some of them have. I understand that some of the policemen didn't even have guns, for example. And yet they were at the police stations. I've always said that when it comes to the polling stations, I always say that when it comes to the Ghana police, they are very professional. And they actually do, they do, yes, we have issues with them sometimes, depending on how they do their work. But when they set out to do their work, they actually do it very well. So they having the police service, that is their training. They are more trained to keep law and order as compared to the military. So it is the best thing to have them at least keeping the peace rather than the military at the polling stations. I actually think we should come to the situation where we don't need the military at polling stations. We are just voting. So there's actually no reason why we should be bringing the army to polling stations and all of that, just for citizens to vote. The police, I think the police are okay. If we equip the police well enough, I think that they will be able to keep the peace and they will be able to keep law and order. They are better, they are trained for that, rather than as compared to the military. So it's sad that we had this incident in Techiman. I don't have the full facts as to what really happened, but it was sad to hear that even when that somebody was shot and shot dead. I mean, then you are thinking, why would somebody have to lose their lives? Was that the only way to address the situation and all of that? So these are some of the things that we can take note of and improve and probe and find out what happened, because once a human life is lost, it just can't go away like that. But in future, I still think that it is the police we should be using. We should rather equip them very well. If we need, of course, the numbers, we can always talk about the numbers of police personnel that we have and work at that. So invariably, I've always said that the best for us, I always come back to institutions. The best for us is to work very well, equip our institutions, build them up to carry out what they are trained to do, so we don't have to rely on any other security section of our institutions that is not trained necessarily for that job. Yeah.
So the current and I'm segueing now from the security situation back to the election itself and the outcomes, the possible outcomes on the presidential level. As we stand, with 256 constituencies confirmed, President Akufo-Addo is in the lead with 51%. The gap between President Akufo-Addo and former President Mahama is less than 500,000. In the last election, the gap between the two was over 1 million. What's the political meaning of this?
So we always say every election is a referendum on the incumbent government. So people look at the actions, the policies formulated, the work that have been done vis-a-vis the promises that were made to the people. So people will definitely look at what you have promised and what you have delivered it could be one of the reasons. That is the gap between what was promised and what was delivered could lead to an element of voter reduction. It could also be on the improvement of the opposition party or parties, maybe their ability to repackage themselves well, and their ability to design a policy or manifesto that connects with the needs and the aspirations of the people, the ability to widely campaign, and then to also sell these messages to people in a manner that they understand. It could also be general other reasons. I'm still not sure the level of voter turnout, whether there could be an element of apathy or what, we still don't know. But largely speaking, it has to do with people's assessment of the performance of the government, and then the gaps that exist between what was promised and what was delivered. It could also be from the effort of the opposition party, who have maybe campaigned better and very well and have been able to come up with policies that connect with the people. It could be any of these reasons, but it still shows that whatever the case might be, the NDC has improved in terms of narrowing that wider gap moving forward. And it shows that the MPP will have to learn its lessons and find out where they weren't doing things right. That has accounted for the huge drop in terms of, even though they are still leading in the process, but that element of difference suggests that something has been done, either positively from the opposition or negatively from the government of the day.
Now, the voter turnout was massively more. Okay, I won't use massively because we're not done. But so far, the trend of voter turnout seems to show a marked increase between this year and the last election. What would you say is perhaps the bigger indicator or the bigger means by which the opposition party has closed the gap? Would you say that it's just that even where they lose by smaller margins? Or is it that they have somehow, with the creation of new regions, the NDC has somehow found new strongholds?
I wouldn't, even though we are yet to still have the full complement, I am not tempted to think that they have found new strongholds. Because even though we have new regions, these regions were carved out of old regions. And then, so for example, if we take OT, and I think the OT was part of the Volta region, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And the Volta region was already the stronghold, the World Bank of the NDC and all of that. So yes, it is reasonable to have expected that because OT got a new region, they would have probably rewarded the ruling government with some seats. But surprisingly, if following I understand that the NDC still seems to have been very...
They claim to have won all
the seats in OT.
Region. Yeah.
Would that be a new stronghold? I don't think so, because OT is still carved out of the Volta region. What it just means is that probably the ruling party will have to see what, because it means that giving them a region was not enough to build enough sufficient loyalty within that voter demographic. Yes, like Dr. Ludi said, when we are going for elections, it's more or less a referendum on the incumbent. And we also know from analysis that generally every government loses by a certain, they reduce their votes by a certain margin. When it is all done, we'll probably have to assess whether this government has gone beyond that margin or is still staying within that margin. But yes, clearly voters are sophisticated. Like the last time we were discussing, different things matter to different voters. So each voter has their probably what they are looking out for in a government, and then they decide between the various political parties what would work for them. What rather surprised me is it looks like another poor showing for the smaller parties. I don't think, did the smaller parties get up to 5%?
1.4%.
So not even 2%. No. So again, and we had how many? How many?
12.
So there were 10 other.
10 other parties, and combined, those 10 other parties combined
Less than
to get
2%.
less than 2%. It brings, I always say that Ghanaians, sometimes when you are chatting, I've always heard people say that NDC and MPP are the problem in this country, and then I ask, so who has been voting for them? I always said, so who has been voting for them?
Right, good question. Good question.
So, yeah.
I mean, I suppose if you want to wrap up your thoughts on 2016 to 2020 and what it really means, this is what you have to contend with. About 15 million people voted in 2016, and 1 million of them, 1 million more of them preferred MPP to NDC, or preferred Akufo-Addo to John Mahama. In 2020, almost 17 million we are going to have about a turnout of almost 17 million by the time we're done. And yes, more of them preferred Akufo-Addo to John Mahama. But the John Mahama who was rejected by at least 1 million people, this time around, at least 500,000 people, have accepted him as their preference. If you compare to how many people rejected him in the last election. There are going to be 1 million explanations given for that. But of course, here on your election headquarters, you will hear the best and most educated opinions on why that has happened. That and more when we return.
Let me tell you what makes my cooking fire.